Hi, I'm Alicia from the Melanin Initiative Podcast. Our mission is twofold. One, to simplify complex health information so you feel empowered to ask questions, educated on how to manage your health, and confident to navigate the healthcare system. And two, to elevate the expertise of nurses, spotlight the diverse career opportunities within the healthcare industry, and inform our peers how to leverage their expertise as clinicians and entrepreneurs. In less than 2 years, we've grown to over 50,000 views and 1,000 downloads, with an international audience spanning the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and more. Our engaged listeners are professionals, entrepreneurs aged 25 to 44 who value authentic, impactful content. Want to connect with this dynamic audience? Advertise with us. Send in your 1-minute video ad and let's amplify your brand. Email tmi.melanin@gmail.com for rates and details. Let's work together.
Here at the Melanin Initiative, we simplify medical information into language you can understand. We create a safe space to ask your questions and share a nursing perspective. Today, we'll be talking about loneliness and emotional intelligence with our return guest, Dr. Farah Laurent, a doctorally prepared nurse who's been on here twice already to talk about sepsis and to participate in our 73 questions. Today, we're bringing the heat with an absolute superstar in nursing, leadership, and career coaching, Dr. Farah Laurent. That's right, y'all. She's not just 1-time, 2-time, or even 3-time certified. She's a 6-time board certified trailblazer. Let me break this down for you. Dr. Laurent holds certifications as a nurse executive, advanced, a nursing professional development specialist, a certified patient experience professional, a trauma certified RN, a certified pediatric emergency nurse, and a certified emergency nurse. Woo! When I say she's got the receipts, I mean she's got the receipts. But don't let all those letters fool you into thinking this is just about titles. Dr. Laurent is a true force of nature in this profession. As an international nurse career coach, she's guided over 500 nurses around the globe, helping them dream big, execute bigger, and secure their bag while making a difference. She's proof that success isn't about luck. It's about strategy, execution, and heart. Today, we're diving into something that affects all of us, loneliness. Oprah sparked this conversation in her New Year's special, and Dr. Laurent is here to keep it going. She's going to share actionable steps and ways to combat loneliness, as well as increase your emotional intelligence by building strong communities and networks, because no one should have to go it alone. And if you want to take this conversation off the podcast into the real world, you can do that with her, because she's hosting her first conference called Nurses Making Money Moves on March 8th at International Women's Day in Tampa, Florida. It's going to be a game-changing event, and you don't want to miss it. If you're new here, welcome to the Melanin Initiative. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner and one of your co-hosts here, along with Alicia and Geraldine, who send their love in their absence. We're a health literacy podcast. When we say health literacy, we're talking about your ability to obtain information, to understand it, and then to use it to manage your health and advocate for others. We have 2 missions here. The first, like I said, is to simplify complex health information so you feel empowered to ask those questions. The second is to elevate the expertise of nurses, spotlight the diverse career opportunities within the industry, and then to share with our peers how they can leverage their expertise as both clinicians and entrepreneurs, which is what Dr. Laurent will be doing with us today. If you haven't already, this is your chance to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, hit the notification bell. When you engage with our content, it shows the algorithm that this information is important, so that when people like you look for content like this, will show up higher in their search results. Remember, this show is for educational purposes only. Our opinions expressed here are opinions alone. They're not a representation of any of our affiliations. If you think you might be having a medical emergency, you should seek medical attention and medical guidance from your healthcare provider. If you think you might be having a physical emergency, you should call 911. If you or someone you know might be having a mental health emergency, you can call 988 or text 741-741. Dr. Laurent, welcome back to the Melanin Initiative.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here again. Thank you so much for all that you do, and excited about this conversation.
Yeah, we're super excited. We're honored that you would once again share your time and talent with us and our audience. We will have the links to your previous episodes in the description box so they can get to know you from scratch. But today we're going to play a quick little game with you we call 5 Questions in 5 Minutes that we got from our good friend Nancy Twine, host of Maker's Mindset. So the first question is, what's the best thing that never happened to you?
What's the best thing that never happened to me?
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know. This is a good one. I mean, honestly, I don't even know how to answer this, but I would say probably continuing on in my associate dean position. So basically getting laid off. So I see that as a positive, even though some people might be devastated, because I really believe in, redirection and protection.
I agree. I think it's one of the best things because it gave you an opportunity to work on your business.
Yes, I agree.
Question number 2. What's the next big idea you want to be a part of?
Ooh, so the next big idea, honestly, it's something that I'm already working on now, is to shake up academia in nursing particularly, and make sure that in academia we offer more courses that are related to nurse entrepreneurship, not only at a doctoral or master's level, but even in the bachelor's and even other LPN, level courses, because a lot of nurses are interested in nurse entrepreneurship and are not quite sure how to get there, and even have some business basics, like some business acumen, and also even courses on how to navigate social media as a nurse and how that can improve your personal branding as you grow in your career as a nurse.
Wonderful. Your biggest challenge this week and how you're overcoming it?
So I would say probably the biggest challenge, I don't see many things as too big of a challenge, former emergency nurse, but I've been a bit sick, but just trying to rest up, drink fluids and just kind of push through. Yeah, that would be it.
If you had to start over, what would you do differently?
Ooh, this is a good one. So if I had to start over, particularly, I would say networking. I would network a lot more and also get into mentorship a lot earlier. So not only seek out mentors, but also I should have been a mentor much early on in my career, even as a nursing student, mentoring other nursing students.
And I had a fun time giving you your flowers. Who would you want to give their flowers to?
So honestly, you. I would like to give some flowers to you because honestly, and it's not just because I'm on your podcast, but I want to say that you have been one of the most, biggest supporters since I've started on my journey and since we've met. I know we were on each other's podcasts early on, but behind the scenes, I want to say Dr. Kimberly Madison is extremely supportive and always giving out tips. Whether it's marketing tips or like, hey, you should check out this video or do that. So very generous and very giving. And always she seems like she wants other people to be successful. So I want to give you your flowers. And then you're killing it too in the nursing game and entrepreneurship game. So shout out to you.
Well, thank you, folks. I did not pay her to say that. Thank you so much. It was very sweet. You've been in this game longer than me, so to hear you say that really does mean a lot. And I've learned a lot. I'm continuing to learn a lot from you. And so to be in the inner circle with the badass career coach means a lot. So I thank you for that. Last question is, what season are you in?
Ooh, I'm in the season of increase. Okay, so I love what?
Abundance
And increase. There's this song that I love, but that's one of the lines in there. And she talks about moving forward. So I love that. And I'm really, one of the posts that I recently did when we came into the new year was to really be intentional and try to leave the scarcity mindset back and to just move forward more into an abundance and a growth mindset, because you really have to work on it daily. So that's the season.
Wonderful. Thank you. I want to just piggyback real quick because you were talking about what the next big idea you want to be a part of, which is bringing more business into nursing curriculum, right, as a standard part of the curriculum. And you talked about those who have aspired to be an entrepreneur, but I'm going to push back and argue with you on that because I think everyone needs to do that, because as a clinician, you're going for a job or a promotion, you're going to speak patient, but whoever's hiring you is speaking business. So even if you don't want to own your business, you're going to be working for someone who owns a business, and you need to speak the same language. And as entrepreneurs, we were just talking that even when you start to, I always say, if you're persistent and consistent, your business will grow. And when that happens, you're going to need help. And when you need help, you're going to need a strategy. And part of that is identifying the right people for your team. And after being in this game for just a little while, right, not even that long, but long enough to realize that the more people on my team who have business acumen, the better it is. I can grow my business faster. It's less stressful, less waste, I spend less time having the same conversations over and over because they've already made that mind shift that you talked about.
Right.
It doesn't mean people who don't have it don't have the potential to get there. You'll just have to use your own judgment on how much lifting you want to do. But if we build this acumen in the curriculum, then everyone can come out and be more competitive and not only grow the business, but have better professional experience because they understand what's going on here and what's in it for them.
Yeah. I love that you said that too, because it is applicable to any, not just nurses, but really anybody that's in school, because it could be applicable to any industry. Because recently I was listening to someone, I can't even remember who it was, but they said that like one of the best things they did was go to school to get a marketing and communications degree. And then they shifted into something else, but then they didn't realize, I wonder if it was Amy McCarthy that said that. I don't remember, but basically whoever this person was saying how important marketing is, no matter, even if you're not in business, because you're constantly marketing yourself or pitching yourself, and nurses have a hard time self-promoting. And I think that's why a lot of nurses can't advance in their career because they can't articulate their worth, and then they can't articulate certain things during interviews or even for promotions. So really we and communications are, really key to be successful.
Yeah, and shout out to Dr. McCarthy. I think it might have been her. We were in the DNP program together, and she's out here in Texas with me. And she the two of you on screen is just energy on a 10.
Oh wait, and she's coming to the conference.
Oh,
she said she's coming, but she got to get her ticket. So I got to follow up with her. And she is the president of the Texas Nurses Association. She's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So like the title says, we're talking about loneliness and emotional intelligence. This conversation was inspired by Oprah. On New Year's Eve, I noticed that she posted a video from her podcast, I think it's Super Soul Sunday, on loneliness. And within like the first 4 hours, it had almost 10,000 views. So on a day that's all about celebration, here's a video on loneliness that's getting a lot of attention. And so we're going to talk about loneliness today. And then I have to give Dr. Farah her flowers because she thought it would be great to tie in emotional intelligence, which I think is excellent. And we're going to give you some actionable steps on how you can overcome both of these. So I just want to do a little bit of background on both of them. So in preparing for this episode, I came across a gentleman named Daniel Goleman. He's a renowned psychologist and author who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence through his book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. His work highlights the critical role of emotional intelligence in personal and professional success, emphasizing that emotional intelligence can be as or even more important than cognitive intelligence. And he has 5 components to this: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. His framework emphasizes these skills that he says are essential in various domains, including leadership, relationships, and our overall well-being. It's also considered a learnable skill. You can learn this at any time. And it means that we can develop this and strengthen these components starting today. So let's do a little bit on loneliness, and then we'll get into our conversation with Farah. So loneliness is defined as a subjective emotional experience characterized by a perceived gap between individuals' desire and actual level of social connection. It can occur even when surrounded by other people if the relationships lack depth, meaning, or authenticity. And there's 2 types: emotional intelligence, which is a lack of close, intimate relationships or emotional support, and then social loneliness, a lack of broader social connection or sense of belonging within a community. In our society today, it's become actually a public health concern, often referred to as the modern epidemic. Factors that have contributed to this are urbanization. More of us live in densely populated cities, often experiencing isolation despite being around so many people. We have digital technology. There's an increased reliance on virtual communication, sometimes lead to shallow connections, replacing deeper face-to-face interactions. Cultural shifts. Individualistic cultures which prioritize self-reliance can inadvertently lead to weaker community bonds. Our aging population. Many older adults face loneliness due to loss of loved ones, retirement, or reduced mobility. And then we have the pandemic, which led to social distancing measures and remote work, which we continue to want to seek out. And so there's really no incentive anymore to get in community. According to a 2020 report by Cigna Health Insurance, revealed that over 60% of Americans felt lonely, and a significant increase compared to previous years. And disproportionately affects young adults, Gen Z, millennials, with many reporting feelings of isolation despite high levels of social media use. And globally, the World Health Organization identified loneliness as a growing issue tied to both mental and physical health concerns. So Farah, have you experienced loneliness?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, it's funny that you had mentioned that when you talked to me about that episode. I was just looking up a couple of things, and I found something in 2023. The Surgeon General actually, they had this huge report about loneliness being an epidemic in the U.S. So I thought that was interesting because, even though, like you said, we're in these huge cities or wherever we are, a lot of us do still go through that loneliness. So to me, I think during like nursing school, I had a lot of friends. We were always together studying and things like that. But then as I grew older, as you start kind of developing your family, you have kids and things like that, I feel like you start kind of disconnecting with some of your friends. At least that's what's happened to me and some of my friends. And then I've moved multiple times, like left Canada, moved in different states. And then obviously, I think the other biggest thing is the phone. That's kept a lot of people kind of away because a lot of people are just texting, not having conversations, and like less one-to-one kind of, like you mentioned before, like gatherings. So that's why I'm excited about the Nurses Making Money Moves conference.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the Surgeon General because that's who Oprah was interviewing. So he was on his way out, his appointment. He served two presidents, and both him and Oprah identify as introverts. And ironically, that same guy I mentioned, Daniel Goleman, also sat down with Oprah. It was kind of to talk about emotional intelligence.
Oh, funny, yeah.
Wow, this is a great connection here. So with the loneliness part, as you mentioned, entrepreneurship can be very lonely, right? Mm-hmm. You see people on social media talking about things every day, and you feel connected to them, but that person on the other side of the screen is talking to themselves with a camera, right? Yeah. You are, after you spend all day building someone else's business, you come home to build your own dream. And it's lonely. You're doing it after your family goes to sleep. It's dark. You're isolated. In that same video, he mentioned that people would be surprised. So you mentioned the parenting and children, right? Yeah. Anytime my friends have said they've gotten pregnant, I immediately have gotten sad because I know they're going to disappear because their priorities shift, right? Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to call any names, but I do have a few friends who have done a really good job keeping me alive in the friendship, right? But I mean, naturally, their priorities have to shift,
right?
And so for me, and they had a couple people come on and share their experiences. Yes, it's someone who doesn't have kids. It's lonely now because your friends are busy raising their family. And the Surgeon General mentioned, you might be surprised to hear that a lot of parents find parenting very lonely because you're doing that by yourself. And you don't hear that a lot.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably also different definitions that people can describe what their loneliness feels like. It could be different to everybody. Yeah. But another thing I thought was like, also when you have a baby, we don't talk a lot about like postpartum depression, that postpartum phase or whatever. But I think a lot of women go through that loneliness stage because I noticed that like when the baby's first born, the baby gets so much attention. And then, like a lot of people like ignore the mom, right? They're like, oh, hey. Yeah. Like talk to the mom too, right? Because like everybody's just so obsessed with the baby. Like my sister just had a baby in Canada. I still have to go out there and visit, but the baby's just 3 months old now. And I think she's doing a lot better, but you could see, it's very hard in that beginning part. Even if you're, like you said, in close contact physically with people, you could still experience that loneliness because it really hits so many different levels, from like intellectual to emotional or, whatever.
Yeah, because even with your partner who didn't go through, especially if your partner's a male and they didn't go through that physical change, even there's some distance there because your whole world has changed, your body has changed, and you're wondering why this person doesn't get it like you're getting it. And so that can make you feel a little bit isolated and lonely. This person that you're madly in love with, that you may have just gotten married to, who's have no problems up until now, right? And it's because your experiences have been very different. And I know men are also say, hey, look, we don't talk about it, but we're lonely too because we didn't have that. Our body didn't change. We're not getting all the attention. We used to be first, used to care about our needs first, and now we have to take a step back. And that is lonely, right? And isolating.
Yeah.
When it comes to entrepreneurs in particular, it's very lonely. So there's a popular group out here of entrepreneurs. There's a nurse, Justin Allen. He started the Elite NP. And so he has a group where all of us are in there. And one day someone from the DMV was like, I'm a single mom, I'm an entrepreneur, and it's just so lonely. Is there anyone out here like me? And she got flooded with comments of people who were right here in the DMV. And so they started their own little group. They had an in-person meetup. They're on there every day talking. And if she had never said that little comment, she would be out there by herself and you would have never have known.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I think people are in different phases. Like you talked about seasons earlier. People are in different phases a lot. And sometimes, if you do want to grow, sometimes you do outgrow certain friendships. And I think that's actually necessary to be successful, depending on what season you're in. So, sometimes that happens as well, that you're like gathering a new type group of people. But yeah, I mean, I think there's different ways that you can kind of combat this loneliness by just simply, scheduling regular meetings or in-person meetups with different people to help with that.
Yeah, and so there's two kinds of meetings you can have. You can do the one where you plan it yourself, or you can go to events like the one you're having with Nurses Making Money Moves. And so we love to give resources, right? I'm going to shout out the author Nick Gray of the 2-Hour Cocktail Party. He teaches you how to host a little party at home. But I think the principles in that book are applicable to when you come to a big event. That can be easy for someone like me and Farah, do you consider yourself an extrovert?
Yeah, I do. It's weird though, because I feel like growing up, I wasn't not that extroverted. And then I kind of became more extroverted, probably as I grew more confident and, older. Yeah.
Likewise. Actually, I do consider myself to be an ambivert. And so, introverts particularly, they get drained by being around other people. Extroverts tend to be energized, right? And so I can be on 100 all day long, but when I come home to my home, I need to be on 0. Right. And so that has created some challenges, right? When I need to share that space with someone else and I can't be on 0. Right. And so that's been a learning curve for me. But for our guests who are going to be attending your event, right, we want to give them some actionable steps on how to overcome the loneliness, because you can be in a room full of 100 people and still feel alone. And someone like myself, I can be here alone, but not feel lonely. Those two things can still exist. And so when it comes to showing up in person and we say, just come network with all these really great people. For some people, that's very intimidating. They don't know the first step to take. And so the first thing that Mr. Goldman recommends is having that self-awareness, the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts and behaviors. And so, first of all, recognize, how do I feel about being in an in-person event? And why do I feel like that? A lot of the conversation him and Oprah were having was getting back to the why. And when did it start? And how do I respond to that? And both of them, and I agree that you can really only hear your own voice when you're by yourself. And they both recommend it. Now, in all fairness, both the Surgeon General and Oprah are self-identified introverts. And I think the conversation could have had a little bit more value had they had someone with a different perspective, because all the recommendations they made are things that introverts would really love, right? And so they think it's really important. I think that too. I think it's hard to hear your own voice when everyone else is talking. And so it is important to be comfortable in your own space.
Yeah, I love being alone, actually, the older I am now, because, when kids, the husband, the kids, there's a lot going on. So like, I feel at peace a lot of times when I have my alone time. And I think a lot of moms probably feel the same. But I do, enjoy in-person events and things like that. I think it's really, everybody has their own kind of, I guess, gauge to see like what fits their, liking, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, I'm very strategic when I go to conferences. Yes. Or certain events. There's certain people that I know will be in attendance, and I'll have like specific things. Like, for example, I was in New York, in Queens. This was like, I think a year and a half ago, where I was being awarded a scholarship, a DMP scholarship. And I knew certain people were going to be at that event, at this gala. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go early, and I'm going to introduce myself to, like, say, these 5 people. And that's what I did. I did it early before the crowd rushed in, introduced myself and said, hey, my name is Farah, I've been following you on LinkedIn, like, something in common. And then just have a short conversation. And if you can, exchange phone numbers if possible. And then say, like, perhaps if they'd want to meet in the future. Something as simple as that. So at least you have a couple people that you want to speak to. And then the rest of the conference, you just kind of like go with the flow and see who comes up to you or who you go up to. So I think that is helpful, having a select few people that you want to connect with. So for me, for this Nurses Making Money Moves conference, someone had asked if there was a space where other people would be kind of chatting, and so where they would get to know other people coming. So I created the Nurses Making Money Moves page on LinkedIn, so they could go there and kind of talk to each other and know who was coming. So that's kind of one thing I did. Yeah.
I love this. So your target audience is nurses, right? And so nurses are clinicians. There's a doctor, an author, Dr. Atul Gawande, a surgeon out there in Massachusetts. He wrote the Checklist Manifesto. If there's one thing nurses love, it's a checklist, right? And so we can use this in our personal lives. So just like Farah said, you go to the website for the conference, you look at the agenda and the speakers, and you create your own agenda. Because maybe you might be feeling overwhelmed, right? If you've been working remotely, attending Zoom meetings, maybe you work at night and all your friends work in the daytime. And so this is your first coming out party, right? And so you're like, I don't want to get too overwhelmed. So that self-awareness is, I tend to have a little bit of social anxiety. I've never done this before. I don't know anyone else. You mentioned a student or someone she was supposed to have a buddy. The buddy backed out. And what's their first thing? Oh, I'm going to back out too. That's a sign I shouldn't go. But no, you're just going to create your little agenda. You first recognize, how do you feel about this event? How do you feel about being in places where you don't know people? Okay, then just come up with a checklist. On day 1, I'm going to get dressed. On day 1, I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to go eat breakfast. And I'm just going to meet one person at breakfast. That's the goal. Keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, keep it light. And then pick out the agenda, the events you want to go to, and pick out one goal per speaker. That's it. Keep it light.
Yeah. And I love that. The other big thing that actually Dr. Kiana Jones, shout out to her, she was the one that gave me the idea of having a VIP evening before. And that's going to be the opportunity March 7th on the Friday for all the speakers actually to meet each other and myself, and then have specific guests who want to attend VIP be there. And it's limited seating and it's by invite only. So it's not open to everybody. And I strategically picked a rooftop restaurant that's very big. It has a lot of tables. a lot of spots where people can have like their little conversations so people don't feel intimidated. So, if you're wanting to come to VIP, definitely message me. But I love that framework, and I'm going to see how that works, the VIP evening, and then the second day is the full day conference. And if people's feedback is positive, I'm gonna keep that same model for the next year's conference as well.
That's wonderful. I like it because it gives you a chance to dip your foot in the water, kind of get a feel for it so that when the conference kicks off on Saturday, you won't be as overwhelmed if that's how you're feeling right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the next part of the framework is self-regulation, and it's the ability to control or redirect disruptive emotions and impulses to changing circumstances. So you're going to go to this event. In the past, maybe you have been overwhelmed or felt very anxious, or someone wants to speak to you and you don't know what to say. And so it's the ability, like, how are you going to respond in that time? Maybe you step out and get some air. Maybe in between speakers, you do go get some air or get some water or check in back home. Just come up with what's going to help you feel like you're back in control.
Yeah, those are some great tips. And the other thing is, a lot of the people that are coming, a lot of the people are nurses, but there's also non-nurses who will be there. Who are in different industries like styling, personal branding, speakers, and things like that. So that's going to be another way, too, to step outside the nursing industry and meet other individuals that are not in nursing. And I did that purposely because I feel that nurses need to learn from other industries and start kind of networking with different people to expand, their network and change the perspective on certain things.
Yeah, we love that here at the Melanin Initiative because, that's one of the things we're trying to do, show all our peers how you can leverage your expertise in other areas besides patient care. And when you do talk to other industries, you can see how you can leverage your expertise. And if you do decide to get tired or burnt out from what you're doing, you don't have to completely abandon what you've learned and acquired. Yeah. You just use it in a different way in a different industry.
Yeah.
And so then the next part is motivation. So this is your inner drive to pursue goals with energy and persistence, not solely for external rewards like money or status. So you have to know your why. So when you do get in that environment and maybe you start to feel overwhelmed or anxious, why am I here? Why did I step out of my comfort zone? Why am I trying to do something different? Because I'm trying to get a different result.
Yeah, and I'm happy that you brought this up too, because this can be true also for speakers. So even though there'll be guests there, speakers can also get a little overwhelmed or get nervous and anxious. And one tip that I heard from someone is that when you're up there speaking, whether you're on a panel or you're speaking in front of all these individuals, just remember that people want to see you successful. Like, people want you to do great. They're cheering you on. So just keep that positive kind of thinking and energy. And then like simple questions that you can ask other attendees is like, oh, how did you hear about this conference? Or like, where are you from? Like, or do you know Farah personally? Like, you use me as a topic if you want, or, whatever. Is this your first conference? Because some people that I actually spoke to, it's going to be their very first conference that they're ever attending. So there's so many different things that you can talk about, from like what people are wearing to like complimenting them on something. And like you mentioned, the name tags with like maybe something that's that you like, or like a conversation starter would be good to have.
Yeah, so Nick likes to keep it simple, especially for the first in the beginning. He recommends like 3 icebreakers. The first one should be super simple. What did you eat for breakfast? It's not, you think, oh, what's your favorite book? But actually, that actually is kind of challenging for people. They have to stop and think, and it brings the energy down. But if it's something they just did in 24 hours, they can remember that. And if they didn't eat breakfast, they can just say, hey, I didn't eat breakfast. I don't like breakfast, whatever. But keep it really light in the beginning. And then, and I love that you brought up the speakers, though, because that is a big thing, right? You're asking people to come out, step out of their comfort zone. You're talking about personal branding all the time, growing a business, starting a business. These are big concepts for some people. Some people have made the leap, so it's not a lot of convincing. You're preaching to the choir. Whereas other people are still trying to overcome that imposter syndrome. I haven't done enough. I haven't learned enough. I haven't been around enough. for this to really relate to me. And so I love that you even talked about the speakers. So just like the attendees, the speakers also have their own concerns and trepidations and worrying, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to trip over my feet? Is anyone going to like what I have to say? Am I going to have the best speech? Is it going to be memorable, right? We all have those thoughts in our head. And so I think another great point that Daniel brings up is empathy. It's the ability to understand the emotional needs of others and respond appropriately. So some of us are going to be there. We've been to 20 different conferences. We're a pro. And we can show up and we can support our friends who this is their first conference. So yeah, that question you said, hey, is this your first conference? And you can say, hey, well, look, this is another conference that I really love. I'll be there. We can meet up and catch up again. This is what I normally do. So like I've been to conferences and I'll tell people, look, the first conference you go to, it's overwhelming. It's a lot of information. Go with the goal of just having fun and meeting a few people. The next conference, I say, okay, take some notes. This is what I use to take notes. And I use it both in practice and when I go to conferences, when I'm learning webinars. And so it has multiple uses. Give people tips and help reduce that anxiety and show them like, hey, look, I was just like you and you can do this too.
Yeah. And I think that's the other big thing is people need to maybe like just prioritize like you said, the 2 top or 3 reasons why they're going to the conference. So that could be very different for all the different guests or the speakers themselves. So really just being clear on the reasons why you're going. And honestly, there's going to be so much, like you said, information that it's going to be applicable to everybody and there's going to be actionable steps. But just the networking alone by itself, that can be the reason why a lot of people are just going just to network, because literally you can meet 1 or 2 connections that could potentially become, like partners, or you could collaborate on a project. Or like I've heard at different conferences, like people are offered jobs like at conferences, like you never know what conversation will spark and what it'll lead to. So I say just, people get into their heads a lot, but just kind of go with the flow, because people are just there to kind of have fun, interact, and see if they can collaborate. You might even end up on other people's podcasts or whatever. And we're going to have like a podcasting section. This is what someone said. They better bring their equipment. I might even bring my own too. And then we could even do like a podcast. So you could end up on a podcast live at the conference. Yeah.
That's funny you mentioned go with the flow, because that's exactly what Daniel and Oprah were talking about. When you have that emotional intelligence, you can go with the flow. But when it's missing from either you or the person you're interacting with, you feel like you're not going with the flow. And that leads us into our last point of the framework, which are social skills. This is the proficiency in managing relationships, inspiring others, and building networks. Some of the key traits of people who are really proficient in this area are communication, conflict management, leadership, influence, collaboration, and team building. What actionable steps do you have for someone who wants to increase their emotional intelligence when it comes to social skills?
Whew, that's a good one. So for me, I would say this is something I'm working on myself in the communication aspect. Is because I get very excited when I talk to people, and I'm someone who talks a lot and fast. So sometimes I don't do a very good job of active listening. So I really need to sometimes take a deep breath, pause, and let the other person kind of take their time and engage. And sometimes I'm too quick to respond. And I need to kind of slow it down, because I'm just big energy, very excited. And I think sometimes I can overwhelm some other people. So I need to check that sometimes. And then also I think just having situational awareness and just like reading people's nonverbal cues is a way that you can kind of tell. So sometimes if someone seems a bit disinterested, you might want to end kind of what you're saying and ask them a question. If you see that they're like, oh, okay, head tilted, tell me more type thing, you might want to continue that topic. So being aware of their nonverbals, I think, is a big one.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the listening thing, because he mentions that. He says you should, so one step you can take, because we've covered a lot of information, this is the first thing you can start with if you're trying to increase your emotional intelligence. When you're talking to someone else, just listen to what they have to say. Don't think about what your response should be. Mm-hmm. Listen, let them finish, repeat back what you think they said, and then respond.
Yeah, the paraphrasing and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think we've covered quite a bit today. Can you let the people know how they can register for the conference?
Yeah, so you can actually go to nursefarah.com and look at under events, and it's there. Or you can go on LinkedIn, and I'll share the link with you as well, where you can sign up for the conference. And it's March 8th, which is the main conference in Tampa on Saturday. And if you're interested in the VIP, it's March 7th, that Friday before. And you can just message me on LinkedIn or just go on the website and get more information and message me that way. And what else did I want to say? There's limited tickets, limited seats. So jump on it. Don't think like, oh, I'll get it next week or whatever, because they're going quick. And then hotels are nearby. It's at the Museum of Art. The airport is like 8 minutes from downtown, so it's very easy to get to. You could take an Uber, and then the hotels are walking distance to the museum. And then you have the river walk right there. So there's lots to do in Tampa, whether you're coming alone or with your family or with a friend. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, and what are 3 takeaways for the audience when it comes to loneliness and emotional intelligence?
So I would say number 1 is be reflective, really understand what it is that you need in the time that you need. And it's okay to be alone if you want to, but just like pay attention to your needs. Ask for help if you need help or you need to connect with someone and talk things out. And then the other thing is just communication skills, I think is big. Just work on your communication skills so that you're clear. And then just have fun. I'm always about having fun and just going with the flow. And if you make a mistake or you think you sound silly saying something, just continue on. It's fine. Nobody's going to judge you or hold you to it. And pretty much everybody going to the conferences, particularly my conference, like they're just there to learn, have fun, celebrate each other, and network. So don't take it too seriously. And just have fun. So I hope to see you in Tampa.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. It's so important that you just give yourself grace, right? Yeah. Because emotional intelligence typically will start at home in childhood. And not everyone is given that fair start. And so if you identify as someone who hasn't been given that fair start, don't beat yourself up. Don't compare yourself to other people. All new things start with taking that one step. And if you weren't given those role models, coming into community, coming to events like this will give you those role models. And just pick 2 or 3 people in the room who you can identify with, who you feel safe with, who you relate to. Maybe one person who you feel is your twin, someone who's completely on the polar end of of that spectrum within you to help challenge you, right? Take you to a different level, give you a different perspective. And then someone who's kind of right there in the middle. Some things you like, some things maybe you could do without, but at least you could sit at the table together for a day and probably get along just fine. That would be my advice to you. And so we want to thank Dr. Farah for such heartfelt and practical conversation. Oprah Special reminds us how deeply loneliness can impact our lives. But today you've given us the tools to turn things around, and you've created that safe space in that community. I have a thing like nurses suffer in silence, and there's no reason to do that, because so much of the conversation is like, go to a good school, get a good job. That good job will give you a good life, and that good life will make you happy. But that's not really true. What's missing from that, a lot of things, but the important thing is community. You can't do any of that alone. You can't get into school without someone writing a recommendation. That's a community. You can't get to graduation without professors and classmates and a study group. That's community. You can't get the good job and an interview without a connection. That's community. And so we need each other. We're social beings. We need each other. That's what this whole life is about. And our greatest purpose is identified when we realize that people we're here to serve.
I love it. Preach. And this is what I'm, wanting to create moving forward, because this is going to be an annual conference, and also with other little mini events throughout the year, because I think a lot of nurses are looking for this. There's even nurses internationally that are reaching out, even from Australia, interested. So I'm just, inspired to really continue on this journey to creating more events. And I really hope to see everybody there. And if you can't make it this time, it's okay. I'll have more events. So definitely follow me on LinkedIn. And again, Dr. Kimberly Madison, thanks for this platform. I appreciate you and helping me share about the conference. Thank you.
We appreciate you. We're going to let Dr. Farah go because she has to pick up her daughter. And I just want to speak because you're targeting nurses. And while there are a lot of men in nursing, nursing is dominated by women. And a lot of women have children or want to be mothers. And that can be a barrier to them sacrificing, investing in themselves, taking the time away. They can feel guilty about that, right? Yeah. And the thing is, when you attend an in-person event, there's no distractions. It's all about you. You don't have to answer the phone, put the dishes in the dishwasher, feed someone. You really get that isolated time for yourself. Don't feel guilty, because when you pay a fee to someone, a coach, a conference, whatever it is, that's you investing in yourself. And no one else can do that for you. No one else can show up better than you show up for yourself. It's the beginning of a new year. It's a wonderful opportunity to start fresh and to invest in yourself. You show up better for other people. You show them how to do it for themselves. And that makes everything that you do better and more impactful by leading the example, doing it, not just saying it.
Yes, be about it.
Remember, everyone, you can email us your questions and show ideas at tmi.melanin@gmail.com. If you haven't already, this is your chance to subscribe. Leave us a thumbs up, a comment, share this information with your network. It shows the algorithm that this information is important, so that when people like you look for topics like this, we show up higher in the search results. All the resources we mentioned today will be in the description box, as well as how to connect with Farah. At the time of this recording, we release new episodes on Sundays at noon Eastern on all your favorite platforms, and the audio we drop at 5 a.m. so that maybe one day someone will play it during huddle, and that our night shift friends have the first to get something and not the last. For this episode, I'll talk to you, Farah, about when we're going to play it, so that we can make sure we get it out in time for the conference. But if you follow, like, and subscribe, you'll be notified as soon as that happens. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.